Hello, everyone, and good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome to our fantastic session coming up on neurodiversity for parents and carers. We're going to get started very soon, but we're just going to give it a couple of minutes to let the room populate. We've got somewhere in the region of about 8,000 people have registered for this event. So it'll take a little bit of time for everyone to just get set up and get in the room so we are ready to start. So just while we're waiting, please take a minute, use the chat function and let us know whereabouts in the world you're viewing from this evening, and I will read a few out. So where have we got? Our first one was Newcastle upon Tyne, so I've got to be happy about that one. We've got Costa Rica, Scotland, Barcelona in Spain, hello from London, Kent, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Southend-on-Sea, Devon, San Francisco, hello to you, Glasgow, sunny Bexhill-on-Sea, Manchester, Minnesota, Detroit, Norwich, Canada, Southampton, Edinburgh, Devon, Ontario, over in Canada, Manchester. We've got lots coming through. It's going very, very quick here, so bear with me. North Devon, hello to Poland. Hello to Nottingham, South Wales, Bristol, Norway, Kansas City. What have we got? Missouri, County Antrim in Northern Ireland, Orpington in the UK, Essex, Devon, Croydon, Michigan, Bristol, and Reno. So I think it's fair to say we've got a fairly global audience for this session about to take place. So let's have a look. What are we doing on the numbers? We're ticking up there on the numbers. So I'm gonna get started. I'm sure a lot of them will be joining a little bit as we go into the session. So hello everyone. Welcome to Neurodiversity Celebration Week 2024. My name is James, and I'm the campaign director over here at Neurodiversity Celebration Week, and I'm also the Chief Growth Officer for Lexic, who are an organisation supporting neuro-inclusive workplaces, and we're very proud to be the official partners of Neurodiversity Celebration Week. So firstly, just a massive thank you to everyone. I can't believe it, but we have actually now passed 160,000 registrations across all our events this week, which is a massive achievement and bigger than we've ever had before. We've got over 80 speakers who have been speaking throughout the week. You can see just a selection of their images there on the right-hand side. So to all of our panel chairs, to all of our fantastic panelists, to the Lexic team in the background who have been very busy moderating all of our sessions, and to you and everyone who has helped amplify the message and the campaign this year, I just want to say a massive thank you. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes just going through some of the housekeeping for today's session, and then I'm going to hand over to Theo, our panel chair, to kick things off and get the discussion started. So just a couple of quick housekeeping things for you. So please note that we are live on Zoom webinar, but we cannot hear or see you as the audience. So take a minute, do whatever you need to do to make yourself comfortable, grab a glass of water, grab a coffee, get ready for the session. It is being recorded and the link will be sent to you in the post-event email that goes out afterwards. So it takes us around about 24 hours to get that all sorted and out to you. So please bear with us, but all of you will receive the recording to this session in the post-event email. And as I said, please don't worry, none of you are going to be recorded at home. Closed captions are turned on and the chat and the Q&A feature is also turned on. So please take a minute, say hello to us in the chat function, let us know your feedback, let us know your views during this evening's session. If you have a question though, can you please use the Q&A section? It just makes it a lot easier for us to be able to pick out the questions from just the feedback, especially if you've got a question for the panelists, because we will be looking at that towards the end of the session and trying to get through some of the questions before we close off. The chat and the Q&A session is moderated by the team at Lexic, so I'm sure you will, but can I please ask you all to be kind and to please be respectful to everyone at all times. The chat can get very, very busy, especially when we've got such a big audience. So some people do get distracted by the notifications and it will keep popping up and popping up and popping up as more chat goes on. So if you're finding it distracting and you'd rather just focus on our fantastic panelists, we will be dropping into the chat how you can actually turn off the notifications throughout the session. So keep an eye out for that. But if you don't see it, just ask the question, how do I turn off the chat notifications? And one of our great moderators will let you know how to do that. As I said, after the event, we will be sending you an email with loads of useful links. It'll have the recording link, it'll have the details of all of our panelists and how to get in touch with them, follow them on social media, and also some of the resources that we're going to be talking about during this session. It does take a bit of time for us to get that out, so please bear with us. It will not be out immediately. As I said, it usually takes a few hours for us to get the recording and get that all over to you. And then we also have a new thing for this year. We've got the Neurodiversity Week Community Forum. So that's a forum on the NCW website that you can go to after the event. It'll be open straight away. And if you want to continue any of the discussions, if you want to network with any of your fellow event attendees, that's the place to do it. We'll also be dropping some resources into there as well. Again, all you need to do, go over to the NCW website and the link will be there, or wait until you get the post-event email and that will also have the link. Couple of final things from me. Loads of ways to get involved this year. Many of you already have, so a massive thank you for that. But please do sign up and pledge your support for Neurodiversity Celebration Week via the website. After today's session, we've still got one full day left. So if you do fancy any of the events for tomorrow, please do sign up for them. They're completely free, they're open to everyone, and you can sign up for as many as you like. Do engage with us on social media. We've got loads going on over the week on social media, across LinkedIn, across Instagram, and across X or Twitter. So please go on there, share your stories, tell us what you thought about the session, share your videos. We've got a social media pack on the website, which you can download. It's got loads of content cards in there, loads of ways to sort of engage with us on social media. And we've also got a ton of resources as well on the website as well. So we've got everything from information sheets, presentations, posters, activity downloads, and kind of how to get involved packs. So please take a minute to check that out and see the resources. So finally for me then, it's just a final note on Lexic. So Lexic, we are the official partners of Neurodiversity Celebration Week. We're the leaders in empowering neurodiversity in the workplace and the organisers behind everything that's been going on during NCW. We're a specialist psychology consultancy and we support organisations around the world to become more neuro-inclusive. We support individuals with everything from diagnostics, workplace needs assessments and coaching. We support teams with line manager training, e-learning, webinars and workshops, and we deliver organisational-wide change programmes and ND accreditation as well. So if you're looking for a workplace and you're looking to become more neuro-inclusive, please just pop on over to Lexic and see what we can offer you. So really, that leaves me with nothing else to do, but delighted to hand over to our session chair for this afternoon, Theo. Theo, over to you.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much, James, and welcome everybody. How exciting is this week being able to share our passion, our interest, our struggles, and the opportunities to, I don't know, do something differently, right? And here today, we've got a wonderful panel of individuals with lived experience, of people who care, are passionate about a topic. I'm Theo, as you know. I'm the co-author of the award-winning book, Neurodiversity at Work, that I co-authored with the incredible Amanda Kirby. And I'm also a LinkedIn top voice, 15 years in recruitment and HR. And I identify as ADHD, dyslexic, and autistic, and who knows what else, right? And have a child who also identifies with autism, ADHD, and dyslexia as well. So we're going to get into a huge round of questions. But before we do that, let's introduce the wonderful panel, or let them introduce themselves. So first of all, Kate, would you like to just say hello to the audience? Let them know who you are.
Hello, yes, just finding my mute button there. This could be a theme the whole way through, but we'll see how we get on. Hi, everybody. So thrilled that so many people are joining this session. You'll hear from such wonderful, wonderful people with brilliant lived experience. So just to give you a little bit of background on me, first and foremost, I'm a mum to autistic twin sons. So they have been my biggest joy and my biggest frustration now for 22 years. So I've been through many stages with them, all the way through school, fought all the battles, now looking at workplace neuro inclusion, and it's something that I'm lucky enough to be able to do in my job at Centrica as well. So I'm really thrilled to be here. Look forward to chatting through some of your questions. You're on mute, Theo.
You've mentioned it, and now I've done it.
All right.
Honestly, just the one thing do not do is talk whilst you're on mute. Anyway, now on to Vicky. Would you like to introduce yourself? Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'm Vicky Lamb. I'm the Chair of Trustees for an incredible charity based in Essex called Send the Right Message. I'm also mum to two neurodivergent kids who are a mixture of various neurospiciness. We've got, ADHD, autism, PDA. We were all quite hypermobile, so we tick quite a lot of the ND boxes. And I'm really excited to be here. I really love stuff like this, and it's been an incredible week so far. So I'm looking forward to it.
Amazing. Just very quickly, PDA for the audience.
Well, I really like the official name, but pathological demand avoidance, subsection of autism.
Wonderful. Thank you. Appreciate that. And now, Jonathan, would you like to say hello to the audience?
Hi everyone, it's so good to see everyone here. So I've been helping to organize the Hong Kong ADHD Awareness Week. I also talk about my lived experience for corporate events, for school events, and also obviously for different events during the Neurodiversity Celebration Week. And I'm rather late to the neurodivergent community, as I was diagnosed with ADHD and autism around 6 years ago. But I also have an autistic brother, and he also has severe intellectual disabilities. I think so. Although now he stays in the hostel, years of looking after him has given me a new perspective on the joy and the challenges facing caregivers in different life stages.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, and very much look forward to digging a bit deep into that. And Kerry, my Welsh counterpart, over to you.
Oh, Shmai. Thank you. Oh, hi, I'm Kerry Reid from Parents' Voices in Wales. I am a neurodivergent woman with a neurodivergent family. We're a minestrone soup of differences. And I'm late to the party as well as Jonathan. And like many people, I didn't know I was neurodivergent until my children were identified as neurodivergent. And my life was impacted, my career was impacted by the late interventions and support, because we knew so much less back 15 years ago. And so I set up Parents' Voices to bridge the gap between families, education and services, so that we can work together as part of the whole system in meeting needs. Delighted to be here. Thanks.
Brilliant. And someone just asked a question. I mean, I'm getting into questions straight away, right? I don't know, that's naughty of me, but I'm going to go with it, right? I'm going to go with the energy, because I think the question is quite pertinent to a global audience. And that question is, given the environment they're in and the barriers that face them, and I'm thinking not typically UK-centric here from that perspective, if they were going to try and learn more, understand more, support their family or their child, what things could they do? And let's think about there may not be a diagnostic route, right? There may not be access to certain help. Can everybody share maybe a couple of things or one thing that they could consider that they could do to empower themselves, right? Whether that's with information, with guidance, with support, where they could go access free information. There's globally available. Anything that you could give as a hint or tip if you were starting out again and you wanted just to empower yourself a bit more. Are we all good to go with that? Because I think that's going to be a relevant place for all of us to start, right? So let's go backwards. Kerry, if you can give your maybe thoughts on what you would tell them, the one or two things.
I would say, first of all, go with the gut instinct. When we know that there's differences and we all sometimes feel different, then you're probably right. There are differences, and to trust yourself and to come to, for example, Neurodiversity Celebration Week's website, have a look at all the resources, start at the very beginning, get the big picture, and then you can start working down to focus on the detail. But it's all about understanding the big picture and to validate your instincts, I guess.
Lovely. Yeah. Educate yourself as much as you can. That's brilliant. As much information. We become the experts, right? That's the reality. You have to, because the experts sometimes are not that great, unfortunately, more broadly, in every instance. So, Jonathan, over to you. Your piece of advice.
Yeah. So I will rather start with getting the resources about how to be about how to get better, about how to embrace yourself. And sometimes these resources come from Neurodiversity Celebration Week. Sometimes these resources come from different groups focusing on different aspects of neurodiversity. And then, but one of the things that I would like to particularly highlight is you need to know the law of the land. As much as we need to work on embracing ourselves, it's also important to understand that what rights we have legally. Let's say for some places, ADHD is recognized as a form of disability, but in other places, it may not. And then for other places, it may protect caregivers, but in other places, it may not be the case. So it's important to learn about the law of the land.
Brilliant. Thank you. And Vicky?
All of that, but I think even more fundamental is finding a community of people who get it. And I think the journey that we go on sometimes, especially at the beginning, feels really lonely because you know enough to know that you should know more, but you don't have enough people around you to share that with. Because quite often what happens for parents is, you know, teachers will say, actually, we're really sorry, we believe you, but we just don't see it in school. You know, how many of us have heard, you know, they're fine when they get here, you know, they're fine in school. So it can feel really lonely to not understand why that instinct isn't trusted or isn't believed by anybody else. So I think finding other people to talk about it with is your foundation for ensuring that the rest of the journey is a bit easier.
Brilliant. And there's communities across all different social media channels, localized communities, depending where you are in the world. Finding those, I think, can really help because they've been where you've been, right? That is them. And there's people who come back to those communities who don't need to, but they know they can add significant impact and value as people are coming here today. And Kate, over to you.
Theo, massive apologies. I got slightly distracted by the chat when you asked the question. So I think I'm on track with it, but can you just remind me what?
Yeah, of course. No,
sorry, I've shut it down now because I said to you I can't do both.
This is good, right? This is good because also we can remind everybody else what the key point is as well, and that is that no matter where you are in the world, if you're taking your first step out to support a family member, a child, whoever, right? And there's complexities across the globe, and they're different, but the steps we can take might be quite similar. If we're lowering the barrier to things that we have to pay for, things we have to rely on governments or whatever for, what would be your advice in the steps that someone could take from your experience?
So I think I started in a slightly different position in that I didn't notice anything. So there wasn't anything about my sons that made me think there was an issue, and it was the school that mentioned it to me. So I didn't feel like I had to go through that process of knocking on doors. But then once you are in that position, what I would say is that just take some time to allow yourself before you do the research, if you're in a similar position to me, rather than you're looking for answers yourself. Give yourself a little bit of time to grieve. I don't know why it is, but you have this kind of almost like a grief process that you go through because you have all of these plans for your child that are absolutely ridiculous, and it feels like in that moment they're all scuppered. It's not true. Live day to day and give yourself a chance to breathe and grieve.
Yeah, and it's so true. Even though I hoped for some of the answers that I got, when you get them, they're still difficult to deal with, because the reality of then what is ahead of you can be quite tricky. So that really resonates with me as well. It's and that's a bit of trauma in itself, right? Of thinking, oh, you know, it's going to empower me, and then the next day when you know the information is how you thought it would be, it's actually, now I'm really scared because now I have to deal with it as a reality rather than just as a concept. I think that's really useful. So thank you. Think about communities, think about the legal impact of your local area, think about not what you can and can't do, but also what's safe for you to do, because they're different things, right? Legally, we can say that you should have rights, but that's different to saying that you're safe to be able to share your thoughts, ideas, concepts in a particular environment. They're different. So empowering yourself with knowledge, really key in that instance. Brilliant. Right. Let's get into some questions now. So Kate, Vicky, I'm going to come to you two first. Let's focus on a question of how can parents, based on a fact we're thinking about, you know, Neurodiversity Celebration Week, and I know that can be difficult for some, but I think a lot of parents want to be able to empower their children, right? They want to be able to enable them to see what often others are not saying about them, right? Well, they're hearing negativity all the time, and we don't want our children to constantly have to feel that and see that. So how can we shift the focus from deficits to celebrating our incredible children's strengths and abilities? So, Vicky, could you explain to us where you think we can find joy in this conversation, right? Where we can find the beauty?
And it, not to repeat myself, but I do think sometimes it goes back to community as well, because what happens is when you find community is you see neurodivergent elders who've done it all and they've been there. And actually, when you see neurodivergent adults doing well, what you see is, you know, your kid, who everyone is telling you, you know, it ticks all of these boxes for all of these things that are going to make their life really hard and it's all really sad. And then you see these incredible neurodivergent adults doing incredible neurodivergent things, or just not, or just living their lives like normal people. And I think, you know, that community is there to show you that everything's going to be okay. And I think when you recognize that, there's also an element of reparenting yourself, because we all know that neurodiversity or neurodivergency runs in families, and all of the stuff that we then have to unpack about what we were told we should and shouldn't do, what is right and wrong. There's an element of reparenting where we kind of go, actually, it is okay for me to like these things. It is okay for me to do these things. It's okay for my kids to do the same. So you bring out that natural, authentic joy just by accepting, you know, it is what it is, and what it is okay.
Brilliant, thank you. And I think, you know, the reality is that we all go through trauma and challenges, but we don't live in that space all the time, right? And we hope to relieve ourselves of some of that, some of those challenges, and be successful. But it's difficult sometimes when you're in the really negative space to lift yourself out and see positivity beyond it.
Yeah.
So if I could come over to you, Kate, and just ask, you know, what, from a parental perspective then, if we're trying to find joy in this conversation, what changes in like parental behavior can we advocate for? What can parents do to kind of maybe shift their thinking from what the world might be telling them, the news might be telling them, and this kind of very negative perception, or the school or whatever it may be, to something else?
Yeah, so I think for me, and this isn't going to be the same for everybody, everybody's situations are incredibly different. But for me, I noticed fairly early on, not early enough. My boys were diagnosed at age 4, and I wish I'd have noticed this from, you know, I think I caught on around age 7 or 8. But noticing that the way I was parented by my parents, which was very loving, very caring, there was no issues, but that style of parenting wasn't going to work with my children. And so when you take a step back and you realize that, the other key thing is to almost free yourself from other people's expectations and society's expectations. So once you are able to say, I know that they're meant to sit at the table for the whole of the dinner, but they're not going to, so let's not even go there. Once they're small things, but once you withdraw from those and say, oh, by the way, we're not coming at Christmas, we're going to McDonald's, it's so freeing. It's so wonderful to just be able to say, that's not going to work for us, and therefore we're not doing it. And also then to flip it slightly and ask yourself what you can learn from your children, not what they can learn from you. So I feel quite strongly that they're here to teach me every single day. They're here to teach me, and I think most days there is a lesson. So if you can stop thinking that you're the one with all the answers, because you're really not, and be really, really humble and apologize when you get it wrong. Say that you're sorry when you get it wrong, and you'll get it wrong a lot. It's just quite freeing to not have to be perfect, not have to be in control. Yeah, that would be my advice.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And there's always plenty of people or plenty of books or plenty of something to tell you what you're getting wrong, right?
Yeah.
And that can be really disabling in itself when we consider that as a parent, especially if it may be your first child as well, and therefore you've maybe got nothing to measure it against. And that can be quite challenging as well. So, Jonathan, if we think about this from a cultural context and systemic approaches, how they can affect kind of neurodivergent families. You touched upon this earlier about, being a sibling and the impact that that can have on you. Could you just discuss that kind of impact of how of culture and caregiving and where you see the barriers?
Yeah, so this is what I would this is what I have observed. Let's talk about attending events for caregivers. This is what I find something in common, whether I go to events in the local community or in events of expatriate communities. Most of the attendees of these events are women. If you are the man, and then if you go to these events, you get all the praise. You're gonna hear tons of praise saying that, well, John, you are a good man. You are so supportive. You must be a nice person. But whereas if there's a woman, if the woman goes, then sometimes there could be that sometimes you have the perception that these women are taken for granted. So I think I think the possibility there is still there's still the perception that women are the primary caregivers, and if there are anything that requiring the attendance or the attention of parents, then women are expected to be the first respondents. And then the other area I would like to highlight is young people can also be caregivers. And usually in the school settings, there could be lots of reasons. Sometimes some of the schools or teachers may focus more on completing the syllabus, or in other cases, in most parts of societies, teachers are considered rather upper middle class, or at least upper middle classes. They may help us, they can afford hiring people for support. So that's why when you come to supporting students, especially students from rather lower middle class or graduate backgrounds with caregiving responsibilities, some of the parents, they may not be so understanding. And to really support youngsters with caregiving responsibilities, it also requires schools, different stakeholders to be flexible in how to deliver the lessons, in trying to forge a feasible career and life plan for these young people. And equally important is sharing resources. Sometimes you don't need to give the whole lecture to someone else about what you need to do. Sometimes you just share a newsletter, exploring what resources the community can provide, and then that can help a lot.
That's brilliant. Thank you. So already we're hearing about the importance of community and leaning in and getting support from others and listening to past experiences. We're hearing about being able to think about yourself as a parent in that mix and what you can do and the changes that you can make and how you can be a positive influence on your child, but also the sibling piece and the education piece. And if we're thinking about where we sit in society can also have an impact. So what Jonathan was saying there about, you know, the teachers may be in a situation where they're in the hierarchy, they're higher up in the system, and therefore they can't connect with some of the experiences of families and children. And I think that's something that we can connect with globally. And that's not necessarily the teacher's fault, but there is a lack of support and a bridge between those two. It sounds like. Kerry, do you just want to, now coming from your perspective then, think about the needs-led approach for supporting neurodivergent individuals and neurodiversity as a concept? Do you just want to tell us a bit about that and where, I guess, Wales could be leading in that area?
Yeah, we're in a really good place in Wales at the moment because we've got, it starts with policy and from the top down, and it starts from culture from the bottom up. So a needs-led approach is the responsibility of everybody. It means that our policies are not medically model focused, that you have to have a diagnosis in order to receive the support that you need. It's more social model, or even better for a university, a biopsychosocial model, where we meet the needs of every child, young person and adult in the community on a graduated response, that those needs, should they not be fulfilled within the community, that they then can access a medical model and get an assessment for diagnosis should they need it. So the needs-led approach is about having a shared language, shared understanding about neurodiversity and what neurodivergence is, a robust understanding of what that is, so that we understand what those needs are and what strategies are required to meet those needs. But what's even more important is that we elevate the voice of the child, the young person and the adult in that needs-led approach, that we don't think one size fits all, that we understand that people develop and people change depending on their environments and their experiences, that neurodivergence can present differently in different times for people, depending on their experiences and their situations. And so when we put a needs-led approach in, we put it in with the knowledge that we monitor it, and then we adapt to the needs, and then we monitor it, and then we adapt to the needs, that it's not static. And that those needs should meet social needs, emotional needs, educational needs, or employment needs. And you can break your needs down into different categories: socially, emotionally, educational, or employment needs. And then you can co-produce a plan with a child, young person, and the parents or an adult to meet what their needs. Because if people have their needs met, they're regulated. When people are regulated, they can have a dialogue with you and they can help guide you in meeting their needs, and then they meet their optimal potential. But people can't meet their potential and they can't show you their strengths if the needs are not being met.
Fascinating. And you just talked something about language, right? And I think that is one of the big barriers, that sometimes it's the parent will be talking a different language to the teacher. If we think about employment, the employee will be talking a different language to the manager. The parent may be talking a different language to the child, right? So, and the problem is, through that communication comes then a lot of stress and misunderstanding. And therefore, it's not that one person doesn't want to help another, it's that they don't understand each other. So that's what I'm picking up from all the things that you're saying there. It's empowering everybody within that whole piece to have a shared kind of language that they can communicate with, and therefore you can make better decisions. Is that right?
It's all about education. It's about evidence-based, and it's about the whole system. This is a societal culture shift. This isn't about one service doing something or one person in a service doing something to help people with differences. This isn't one policy. This is systemic. And the only way that we can meet the needs of people and truly embrace neurodiversity so that difference isn't a deficit, they're just people have challenges, but as well as challenges, they have strengths, and we can identify those and optimize those strengths so that people meet their potential. It's systemic, it's cultural. Now that takes time, but it has to start with education so that there is a shared understanding and language and a vision that every person matters.
Okay, so now everyone is probably saying in the chat, when can we move to Wales, right? But before that happens, right, before we have the whole shift of the rest of the world moving to Wales, which would be nice, maybe. But Kate, maybe you can tell us what people can do, because this is a nice segue, right? If we're thinking around like the education system, and what strategies parents can use to advocate, I guess, in whatever education system they're facing, whatever. We're talking about those language barriers, communication barriers, or whatever. And the chat, I can already see it lighting up about, teachers don't understand, schools don't understand, people don't understand, like local authorities don't understand, or whatever, right? So what can they do that may empower them no matter where they are?
Yeah, the whole school system is as the whole chat knows, a massive issue. And I think that it's heartbreaking actually when you see how all of our children are being let down. But one of the ways that I always handled the schools was, first of all, to know that they were gonna let my kids down. So to go in knowing that, but also it's almost slightly manipulative, to go in and tell them how thrilled I was about the job that they were doing. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing for my child. Because what I found was, when I went in almost to have an argument because I was upset about the way that my sons had been treated, I kind of was faced with a bit of a brick wall. And I think that there might be something where the schools like to think that they know better. They do sort of tend to look at you sometimes when you arrive as you're that awkward parent. You know, I've had comments over the years of, your sons aren't the only people at this school, and I'm like, well, I know, but I'm here to talk about them. And so I think that they don't like it when they're faced with an argument. Almost, they rise to that challenge a little bit like my autistic sons. You raise the bar, they raise it higher. So it's kind of like I always went in with the thank yous and the have you thought about, and I thought it was really amazing what you did the other week. So always with the praise, and then say, but what would be really great if you could extend on that is, and I was there all the time, to the point that I think they got I'd phone and I could almost hear people scrabbling out of the staff room, like running for their lives. It's Kate Gein on the phone. They're like, oh no, run, we don't want to talk to her, because I'd always have something that I wanted to just raise with them about their rules that I thought were pointless, and that my sons thought were pointless. They were very, very happy to follow the rules, but let's face it, some rules are pointless. And so I would challenge on those things, but challenge in a nice way. I would challenge on 7 hours of homework being set, because that destroyed our lives as a family. I wasn't willing to have the fight once they got home after being absolutely having to mask all day at school, absolutely exhausted, ready to collapse, to say, right, can you start your homework? I wasn't willing to go there. I've been a single parent for like 15 years, so I wasn't about to have our whole evening taken up with a fight over homework. So I'd constantly go back in the homework book. Not happening. No. How many books did they read? They didn't. They read Buses magazine. That's, we can reel off the fleet numbers if you like. I wasn't going to follow rules that made our life hell. So that's possibly not very helpful to some people, but that was just the way that I did it. I just did what worked for our family.
Yeah, and you're right. You have to take an approach that works for you and your environment, and your family, and everything else. But COVID was another good example where, like, I'm not getting my kids on Zoom or any other type of technology. They won't get on it with the grandparents or anyone. How am I going to get them to go on it with a teacher? It ain't happening. Like, well, we tried, because you think you have this belief that everybody else is saying it, you can do it, and then you realize, no, we're not doing this. It's not happening. So I fully agree. It's so challenging. Kerry, I'd just like to come back to you, because on the basis of what then we've just discussed there, and thinking about what you were sharing before, how can then parents initiate like a needs-led dialogue or approach with schools and maybe inside local communities, even though they may be nowhere near there in terms of the reality? Do you think there's a way to be able to initiate that?
No, it's about relationships. It comes down to relationships, because the thing is, schools are doing their best. And I know post-COVID, it's been really difficult with the mental health crisis, the school-based avoidance crisis. They have a lot of kids on their books that have additional needs. And if they aren't fully literate on neurodivergence, and remember, there's children who are neurodivergent that aren't identified in school, they're not on the radar because their conditions are not severe enough. Okay, and that can sometimes be a bone of contention between parents and schools, because the educators might say, well, look, they're not, we don't think that there is a problem, there is a need. I think in Wales, we're very lucky that our SEN, which is called ALN, Additional Learning Needs Reform in Wales, is advocating for a needs-led approach. And that's brilliant. But as long as everybody understands what that needs-led approach means and what that looks like in practice. So we have to understand that there will be children on the register with additional needs that we know of that have a diagnostic label, and some may have complex profiles that require an IDP in Wales. But the majority of children who are neurodivergent won't be on the ALN register. And probably, Theo, as you would agree, there's a lot more neurodivergence than we currently think, at about 1 in 5. Okay, is probably more prolific than that. But at the moment, we're going with the evidence that we have, and we would say that 1 in 5 children have differences in their thinking and their learning. So how do parents approach schools? Well, first of all, it's about relationships. It's about exactly what Kate said, saying thank you. You need these people as a gateway for support. You're not going to get anywhere by insulting people or by shouting or by being difficult. Your role is to keep your child front and center of everything that you do in your communication. And that means by explaining to the teachers and the educators or the ALN Co what you want for that child, if you can, and come with a solution. It might be that you say, I think my child needs some support emotionally or socially or educationally. Try and break it down into those 3 areas if you can. Or if not, you could seek a parent group like Parents' Voices in Wales can help you navigate that process if you can't do it alone. Or in Wales, we have an organisation called Snap Cymru, which supports families and mediates between families and schools. So it's about knowing where to go for peer support, building relationships with schools, asking questions, not being afraid, because at the end of the day, you know, we don't have a very wide window to advocate for our children, really. And the years can go by really quickly. And if we don't meet those needs as early as we can, we end up having to deal with emotional problems as well as having learning needs. And we know that neurodivergent children have a higher risk of mental health conditions. So it's really important to do it early, do it in a way that, remember, closed doors aren't helpful. So keep the relationships open, keep a dialogue going. Communication is key, relationships are key, and reach out to peer mentoring groups, parent groups, and reach out to advocacy, because they can help you.
Brilliant. Just before I come to you, Vicky, which I will, all of that is fantastic, and I'm with it. I would say, and probably some of the chat will come out with this, you may be a neurodivergent parent yourself as well. So sometimes when they're in a hyper state of being stressed and having a meltdown, you're an adult having a meltdown in a different space of the house. And then you may have and we'll come to you in a second, Jonathan, after this, which will relate to something that you can share. I know you may then have a sibling or a family member who may or may not be neurodivergent, but they're also in the mix, and they may also have to step in and help. And it adds a layer of complexity that sometimes, even though this is the best opportunity for your child to be looked after and supported, and you may as an adult not, it's like the mask on the airplane, put it on yourself before you put it on your child, right? But sometimes in that moment of panic and stress, and it's hard to follow that route. So I'm just being mindful of probably how some people feel, and that even though it makes sense, sometimes in the moment it's really hard to be that measured and calm.
Yeah, can I just jump in and to say there that I think with neurodivergent families, that stress level is so much more at baseline than it is for neurotypical families. We carry a heavier load at baseline because of our differences, and then we may be easily dysregulated in our children. This is a really good time to take somebody with you to meetings, to take somebody with you to take notes, to take somebody you trust, somebody from a peer mentoring group, or somebody that can advocate for you if you feel that you are overwhelmed or you may become dysregulated in that meeting. Okay. And it's not, don't be ashamed to say to the school, I'm struggling, I need help. It's okay to say, I'm struggling and I need help. It's much better to say that than to camouflage and mask and then everything come tumbling down. It's brave to say, I'm really struggling. I don't know what's going on here. We need help. In Wales, we have family first services with early help hubs, and they can come in and provide, but those services are there. You can't access them if you don't say.
Thank you so much. Vicky, over to you.
I was just going to come in and kind of add to that point, because I really do echo the relationship building as well. But I also recognize that sometimes as parents, what we're dealing with are people's egos. And it's really hard sometimes when you're faced with this brick wall of kind of professional ego. You know, Gary talked about needs-based support, and I'm a big advocate for it. Quite often what you're dealing with is a professional that doesn't recognize the need, has no way of identifying the need, has no willingness to identify the need, so that we don't need to put your child on, say, the send register because they're not complex enough. And actually we shouldn't be assessing our kids on a curve. It shouldn't be who presents with the most distress in any given time, because what you have is this huge cohort of very compliant, very quiet neurodivergent kids who absolutely have needs that are going unmet, but because they're not shouting the loudest, because they're not your table flippers, they're not having their needs met or identified. And I think there's a real issue there. I'm not medical model minded. I don't think that's the way forward, but what you find for a lot of families is that they're leveraging that medical model process because it's the only way that their children are getting support. And I think that's a really important point to make, because a lot of the families who have to leverage that process are paying privately. And then what's happening is you've got another tier of people who can't afford to do that. So then there's all this social, cultural, economic stuff where it's a real privilege then to be able to access diagnosis and assessment. And you've got kids who are quiet and complacent getting support because their families are either in a position of being able to afford to leverage that, or they've got into huge amounts of debt. And I just think that privilege angle is a really important point to raise as well.
Thank you.
Sorry, Theo. Maybe let me jump in. I think Vicky and Siri also both of you raised a very, very good point. Because what I found out, this is what I found out. What I found out is, let's say when you, because from my experience, the professional I've spoken to, in general, are educators, medical professionals, social workers, or corporate professionals. What I found out is if people believe that, well, if people believe that neurodiversity is an illness, they believe that then you must be fixed, you must be cured. It should not be a part of your identity. Whereas for people considering neurodiversity as a form of identity, is then because they accept who you are, and then by creating the space that different parties can work together, then the neurodivergent can shine. I got to say that I used to be in the education sector for 10 years. When there was a perception that, so if you're neurodivergent, then you should be realistic, focusing on doing odd labor manual jobs. Obviously, we respect people picking up odd jobs, but equally important is to really explore the possibilities. Say, I have been working with have the privilege to meet people trying to support the neurodivergence to be prepared to work in the IT industries or different industries. Sometimes it's really about challenging everyone, thinking about what is possible, thinking about what the neurodivergent bodies can. And then we work together, and then eventually these people can find the niche and then they shine. And I also believe that sometimes while we need to build the relationship with different people, some people they have professional ego. So that's why it's really understand that one's opinion should not be the opinion of all. Sometimes really about going to, it's like during the host, by speaking to different people, learning about what is out there in the community.
That's lovely. Thank you, Jonathan. I think also we live in a divisive world, right? If we always listen to everyone, we'd be really confused, because people are polarized in their views. And therefore, we could have 10 different people tell us something about our child, about our experience, and it could be very different. And therefore, I think we have to kind of lead from the front from our perspective. There's loads of questions coming in. And I think it's clearly challenging for people when they talk about, children at 5 having meltdowns, Jessica talking about kicking, screaming, GP won't even see them because they won't consider them until they're 8. And I mean, nice guidance, evidence-based, right? We can't consider diagnosis until an age where we can be certain what these traits are connect with, right? Because they could be this, they could be that, the evidence says a number of things they could be up until a certain age. Yet, my child, when she was 2, the things she was doing were definitely not typical and really resonate in terms of the way that she shows up now. I imagine I was quite similar in some respects. So what we see as parents, right, is telling us one thing, but the evidence apparently is saying something else, because there's like cost analysis, right? There's the impact on the health sector. There's how much it would cost for everybody to go and get a diagnosis, or how much it would cost for everybody to be able to get medication or help or support. Or I'm just mindful of some of the stress that people feel and where there's a gap in support. Have we got any thoughts around for people who are stuck in that moment where there's significant challenges with their children, and they want to get to the point of where they see the good, the opportunity, and they want to feel good about themselves and their children? Vicky, just over to you. Thank you.
Just a very brief point about, and I forget who said it earlier, I'm sorry, about being informed. There is no reason that you can't assess a young child. And it's really interesting when we start to talk about, cost analysis in the NHS, because no one ever has those conversations about, can we all afford to have insulin for people? Can we all afford to have other medications for people? And there's something about ADHD in particular where suddenly we're like, oh, actually, that's very expensive. So what is it about kind of certain neurodivergent conditions where suddenly it seems really expensive, or we don't want all of these people to be diagnosed. And I think that's where it comes down to really being informed, because when you're informed about what the NICE guidelines are, which doesn't have an age limit on it, there is no age to give the medication. It's licensed from a certain age, but you can give it at any age. You can have a diagnosis and an assessment at any age. That's when you're really empowered to start going through the process. And that's how you start enjoying things, because actually when you feel empowered to advocate for your child, then you start seeing kind of the reason behind the behavior and not just the behavior. And that makes a really big difference.
But there's the problem, right? It's the information you're given by professionals around why they can't help you. So you can be informed, you can have all that knowledge and expertise, but when you meet with a professional and you get a response, that response can leave you high and dry because you don't have the expertise.
But you do have the knowledge, and it's a lot easier to challenge it. And if you've got the knowledge and someone says to you, we can't do the assessment until they're 8, and you kind of go, actually, here's the NICE guidelines that I found online, and it doesn't say that, you've got more power to advocate for yourself. So that's really important. Even if someone does kind of blur the lines.
And you're right. And at that point when you can get the support, whatever it may be, you have so much more information to be able to help you in those conversations. So Kate, please add your thoughts.
I was just going to say that I think we've got a parents chat at work for parents that are raising neurodivergent children, just to, it's just a space where people can come on, they can scream, they can be heard, they can say what they need to say without being judged in the normal working parents network. So what the theme that comes through on there is this horrendously long wait for diagnosis and this pushback that constantly keeps happening. And I wonder if because that exists and that is the reality, to expect something different is sometimes the source of, that's like where the frustration lives, because the reality is it isn't going to happen very quickly. But if you expect that it should, like, you're going to just wind yourself up. So I'm wondering if there's any sort of way that in that space where you're that gap where nothing's happening for you, unless you're wanting medication or something like that, but in that gap, pretend you know what exactly it is. Like, give your child a diagnosis and then look for the strategies, find the communities, as Vicky was talking about earlier, and join them. Don't feel like you need to have a diagnosis for your child to find your tribe, because they exist, and they'll support you, they'll help you, they'll say, have you tried this, have you tried that? Don't wait for a professional to tell you what you already know about your child, is what I would say.
Lovely, thank you. Kerry?
I think one of the problems that we faced, and it was raised in Welsh Government, and they've published a report in Wales called the Mind Over Matter Report 2018. And that report looks at children that didn't meet the threshold for diagnosis. These are the kids we're talking about, the ones they call missing middle children, the children that aren't severe enough to meet the threshold. And this is really common. And when Tony Lloyd and I undertook an all Wales survey, we found that 65% of children on the CAMHS waiting list in Wales were neurodivergent or seeking assessment. Okay, so we knew that there was a high correlation with poor mental health conditions or poor mental health and neurodivergence. And that has been cornerstone really in terms of where we're going in Wales with that needs-led approach to prevent poor mental health outcomes. So it's like, okay, but what do we do in the meantime when professionals might be saying one thing, but we think something else? We're stuck, aren't we, in the middle with missing middle children? And I don't know if it's an appropriate time to plug Amanda's Do It profiler, but what I have done is I've signposted families to Amanda's Do It profiler, because for children between the age of 7 and 16, they can undertake a profiler. Now, it's objective, it's not diagnostic. What it does do, it gives you a profile of the cognitive profile of the strengths and challenges of a neurodivergent child. That is evidence. That is objective evidence, not a subjective opinion by a parent or subjective opinion by a professional who refuses to assess that child. It's a middle ground objective assessment. And what we do is we say, here we go. Here's the profile. Here are the strengths, the challenges. This is what the needs are. This is what support you need to put in. There's your solution. There is no argument then. Okay. And then you can work as a team to build a care plan or support plan for that child to meet their needs. There's a lot happening in Wales in terms of embedding profilers in education for a needs-led approach. You cannot have a needs-led approach without a profiler. It's as simple as that. Because we cannot ensure that you've got robust knowledge and skills on neurodivergence without it. It's blue sky thinking.
Lovely, thank you. And I just want to reiterate there, however you identify it, but yes, the ND profiler specifically helped me advocate for my child in the school system, because they weren't seeing what we were seeing, because they weren't experiencing the meltdowns and everything else, because she's compliant, she's quiet, she sits at the back of the class, but she's not engaging and she's struggling. And by understanding the spiky profile and where the strengths and challenges were, we literally were able to go in with that information, along with some of the information that we'd researched. We were able to put it out in front of them. We were able to walk them through it in a calm, friendly, supportive manner. And at the end of that conversation, we felt like experts communicating in a language that non-expert teachers understood. It changed their thinking, and they went from not thinking our child needs support to appreciating where we were coming from and willing to help. That is a big shift. So however you do that, I absolutely massively advocate for being able to build that out, that evidence out.
Yeah,
totally.
totally.
In a really rational, mindful way that connects with somebody in a language they understand, rather than the opposite, which sometimes we inadvertently do. Jonathan, over to you.
Yeah, so let me just focus on advocacy part. I believe that the parents pay cue to advocate for the kids, especially when the kids are young or maybe help to really get what they need from the school setting. Equally important is to really prepare the kids to be their advocates, and the parents are the best models, because this is what I observe. I know that I know for some of the parents that I know, they knew their kids were diagnosed with autism or ADHD. Say the kids were 6 or 7 years old, but the parent decided to hide the diagnosis from the kids, thinking that the kids would be fine. Yes, the kids managed to get into top universities, graduating with the first class degrees, but the kids are now adults. When they join the world of work, they are fine here, they're fine there, because of communication, lack of understanding of social clause, or challenges in dealing with planning. And then the parents tell the kids that, well, we knew that you were we knew that you're autistic, we knew that you're ADHD, but we want you to be good because we don't want you to be discriminated by others. And now the kids are now adults, and they're and because once the trust is not there, it can be quite a challenge for the trust to be there again. So I also believe that it's really striking the fact for some of the parents, they worry a lot. They are worried that the kids won't be able to stay in the same social economic class. So they want to do everything for the kids. They want the kids to learn to mask so that the kids can survive in the real world. And then the parents end up doing everything for the kids. But the reality is, at the end, the kids are going to grow up. They need to really learn how to be their own advocate. They need to learn how to find allies. Sometimes it's not about people becoming the allies. Sometimes it's also about the kids being the allies of other communities.
So on that basis, how do we empower our children? Because we can't get away from the negativity that exists in society, right? That may exist within the school systems, everything else. But from a parental perspective, we see, you know, incredible children. We love them. We want them to go on and do whatever it is that they're passionate about. We want to enable them. So what can parents do at any part of that journey? I've only been on a call today where one of the parents was like, oh, you know, my child has the most incredible memory. And it's just beautiful and brilliant. The things they can remember, so powerful. I'm the opposite. I can't remember anything, right? But this person can remember everything. And he was naming the benefits, the things that are incredible about it. But the problem is, in the school context, they're still underperforming. They're having challenges with relationships and everything else. So, like, what can parents do to support and lift up their children from to help their children lean into those incredible strengths and abilities? Kerry?
I think it's about exposing children to as many experiences as they can, if you can, early on, and then finding out what they like and then what they're good at. And there's Dr. Halliwell in America, who specializes in ADHD, says children with ADHD will always do well in what they're good at and what they enjoy, and whatever's common to that. And so when you're thinking about a strength-focused approach, so there's two things really. It's the strength-focused approach that you identify the strengths in your child, whether it's a characteristic, they're kind and caring, or whether they're good and they have a skill, and you name it and you remind them about it frequently, and you create this hope and aspirations for careers because you want them to use those strengths, because you shine on a light on the future, that there is hope and success in the future. It's not, remember, life isn't just static. It's not about now. We want them to think ahead and think about what they can do as they're older. So you find out what the strengths are, you identify it, you name it, and you create aspirations for that career. I've done that with my daughter, who's ADHD, dyscalculic, developmental language disorder. She's kind, she's wonderful around animals, she's selectively mute. However, she's now applying for a veterinary nursing course because we've told her and we've created those aspirations. You also, when you learn about neurodivergence through education, you learn about how your brain works. And so you can say things. So for example, my son went in for his driving test this week, and he said to the instructor, you're going to have to say everything twice, okay? Just really casually, you're going to have to tell me what to do twice. And the driving examiner said, yeah, okay, fine, because he's advocating for himself. And it's about that's just a small part of who they are. The challenges are a small part of who they are. The good stuff is so much more. And so we are the strategists to their inner self-talk. We create their self-talk by what we say to them and how we model to our children. So their mirror neurons are firing. It's up to us. We can create children. That's saying, isn't it? Children are like wet cement. They become whatever you impress on them, or something like that. It is that you model it, you say it, you walk the talk, and watch them fly.
And have to accept that they'll pick up some of the bad habits as well as the good ones. But that's a part of human existence. Vicky?
Well, I was just going to come in and say I'm a big fan of this radical acceptance as well. And I think when we take our kids as fully formed human beings as they are as well, we can then have really open conversations about what works and what doesn't. So my son is currently, obsessed with looking at flight plans and, radars and routes. And when he starts reading off numbers, my brain, shuts down and I can't engage with it. So we have a really honest conversation about, I really want to be part of this thing that you're so interested in, but I'm finding it really hard to understand, when you give me a TED talk that has a lot of, flight numbers on it. So we talk about compromise and we talk about how we think and how our brains work. And that whole radical acceptance makes space for something without shame. And then you can start having those conversations about differences in a way that's not, oh my God, stop talking about planes, which is what I sometimes think in my head. But I do want to encourage it and create a space for it. So you find a way to make it work. And that's where that shared language comes in, of understanding our different perspectives. And that's kind of where the cool stuff happens.
Brilliant, thank you. And Kate?
I've always, with my boys, just tried to help them to understand the way that society works, and something that they feel so disconnected from at times, by using what they're interested in. So if that's sitting on a train or a bus for multiple hours of the day, during that journey, you will come up against all sorts of things that they will come up against all the way through their lives. And you can have a conversation about that at the time. You can have a conversation about the way that some people behave on the bus. You can have a conversation about certain areas of London that you're going through. You can talk about history. You can, whatever it is that they're interested in, if you can tap into it, you can grow conversations beyond that, or use that as your way in if you're finding it really, really hard to get in on a communication. And I'm with Vicky. There are times when I've just been told, like, how different fleet numbers have changed across London and where different buses have gone, and then they expect me to know 10 minutes later, like, I already told you. And I think I have no way of retaining the information, but I love that they still want to tell me, and I love that I'm still part of that world and part of that conversation, and there's so much that you can do to expand upon it if you just get interested in what they're interested in.
Brilliant, thank you. Jonathan?
So this matter my observation as a former teacher, as a recruiter of interns. I mean, first of all, I would say it's really about providing the opportunities for the neurodivergent kids, young people, to get hands-on experience. Because I mean, say for most people, they believe that they do well in public examinations, they go to good universities, and then they get a degree, and then they get the job they want. But whereas it is for the neurodivergent folks, or for me, sometimes it's really about accumulating experience, accumulating experience through volunteering, taking up different jobs, mapping out what you learn from one job and how the skills from that job can be transferred to other jobs, and then you build up your career portfolio, eventually obtaining the qualifications you want to get. What I would also say is, the report cards are very, very important. The report cards are obviously important, but they are more than just getting good grades. So the grades, or getting good grades, means that you master the basic skills and knowledge under a particular course, and then you don't get grade A. It means that you may be the master of the course, but in reality, there will be more than just mastering the contents in order to be excelling in what you do. I mean, say, this is my observation. So say, usually people think that if you're neurodivergent, you are unable to get good grades. But in reality is, let's say, if you are, let's say for some of the autistic folks I know, they get good grades in public examinations, they manage to get into universities. But then when they join the world of work, they have issues here and there. Partly because if you are students, then you have the prescribed curriculum to follow, and then as long as you follow the curriculum, then you do well in the exams, and then you just follow the roadmap, going to university, taking the internship, and meeting the graduation requirements. But in reality, except this is about professional ethics or law and order, most of the time, we share our views, we understand other perspectives, we argue, but we also try to understand, we debate, but we also try to understand each other in order to create a win-win solution. So it's more about, so for me, it's more about creating environment for the neurodivergent folks to develop soft skills to develop to develop different attributes that will be impactful for the rest of their life. And then the other point I would like to say is it's really about helping the kids to appreciate themselves, celebrating success, living with self-compassion. Because what I found out is, I understand, because for most parents that I know, they are also worried the kids about meeting the wrong people on through social media, getting into drugs, addicted to alcohol. But because quite often the kids may not get the joy from schools or from family, so that's why they try to find other channels to feel fulfilled. So what I also believe is it's really about conveying the message to the kids that your presence really matters for the world.
That's lovely. And Jonathan, I could talk to you for hours about what you get up to if you don't want to go to school and don't feel like you fit in and don't want to turn up to maths lessons. Like, we could talk for hours about that stuff. I'm not sure much of it is very good and healthy for your overall well-being, but it's a reality. And I appreciate you sharing those key points. And that is the reality a lot of parents face. And only listening onto the radio this morning about the risk for children as well, about them being misused in the sense of in gangs, on county lines, if we think about the UK, and basically being used to do things that work well in terms of the impulsivity or the lack of understanding around what they're being asked to do. And so there is a real risk there as well in terms of children across the world and that we hear. And I think from a parental perspective, that can be quite scary, right? But it can also be an opportunity for us to lean in a bit more and get a bit closer and try and really get to know our kids in a way, because often a lot of what they're experiencing are things that we've experienced at some point in some way, shape or form. We may have just moved a bit further away from those younger experiences, and they may not be exactly the same, but there is a connection there that we have an opportunity to connect with our kids in a really meaningful way. So just as we draw this to a close, loads of the questions, you've been doing a great job at answering them, because a lot of them are very particular. Like, my child is in this very particular stage. They're about to transition to high school. These are the things that are going on. And I think the stuff we talked about, community, local support, the wonderful things that can happen with the support of governments or other interventions, that's great. I would try and find ways to lean into those for those very specific questions. But what would you like to, if you were to round up today's conversation and give your thoughts to the audience today? Do we all have just a couple of minutes each that we can start to round this up? And if I'm to come to Vicky first, would you like to just round up today's conversation and give the key points?
I've got a lot of thoughts, so I'm probably not great at rounding up. I'm more of a rambler, but I think
fine. Go with it.
I'm going to try not to do the TED Talk thing, but I think just for me, I think one of those really important things that I wish I'd known as a kid, and I forget who said it, but like, our parents just didn't know, the information just wasn't there. So there's loads of women my age, loads of people my age who are suddenly discovering this stuff about themselves, and they look at their childhood very differently. And the one thing that I really wish I'd known as a kid, when when I was dropping out of school and chaos ensued, was for someone to go, it's really hard now, but it's going to be okay. And I see all this stuff online about removing demands and all of, and there's a valuable place for that, but one of the risks that comes from removing all of the demands from your children is you get a kid that has a sense of learned helplessness. You have, that risk taking for an ADHD in particular is that innate skill set that they have. Let them lean into risk taking, but help them do it in a way that's safe. So they're not going, county lines. They're not exploring things that they're not meant to be doing. But if that's their innate nature, let them lean into it and go on that journey with them, help them, because then what you can say to them is, maybe there's a better way of doing this, but it's going to be okay. You know, it will be okay. I dropped out of school when I was about 14. I've got 2 degrees now. It's going to be okay. I really wish someone had told me that. Now I'm a massive nerd. I hated school. You couldn't pay me enough to go. Now I'm a huge nerd. It's going to be okay. You just have to find that flow that takes you to a place that works for you. So yeah, my one takeaway is, I swear it's going to be okay. Go with them. It will be. It's just hard. Sometimes it is hard.
It is beautiful, and 100% agree. Kate.
Oh, don't, because I'm now stuck on Vicky's bit, because that was really cool and I've got to follow it. So what I would say is that just embrace this and try not to look too far into the future. As Vicky says, it will be okay, and nobody knows what okay looks like, right? But you just, it arrives and you just think, oh, that's okay. I'm in a position now where my 2 are adults, and you know what, it's okay. But what I would say is that it is hard, and that's just the way it is, and you have to put in hours. So don't think that you can like get some sort of diagnosis, get some support, and you can sort of parent in a way that you would be able to parent other children. You have to put in the hours, and you have to keep those lines of communication open so that they aren't taken away into whatever else they might find online. And I don't know what that would look like for your family, but you have to find a way to communicate. Even if it's when they're little, put in a letter under their door because they don't want to come out, whatever it might be. Keep that communication going. I used to sit in the car for hours with my 2. No phones, you're in the car, we're in the car for 4 hours, we're going to talk. Some of the conversation topics were absolutely horrendous, but we had that time and we'd laugh and we'd chat, and I knew everything that was going on for them. So if you can remain connected, I think that's so important.
Thank you so much. Kerry.
I think for me, if someone had said to me as a parent or as a child, if someone had said to me, these are your strengths, you're not a bad kid, you know, undiagnosed ADHD, you're not a bad kid, you're a good kid, and these are your strengths, I think. And to have a trusted adult, somebody that I remember I related to a lady down the road. She was an elderly person who was just, I felt at the time, probably the only one that just saw me and accepted me for who I was. And that was just lovely. I would say, as a parent, I would say learn to co-regulate first. If you can do anything, learn to co-regulate. If you don't know what that is, Google it. Go to Pookie Knight-Smith Creative Education podcast on co-regulation. Look it up. It's a game changer for families to bring the stress down in the house. And positive relationships. Surround your child with as many positive relationships as they possibly can, whether it's a next door neighbor, grandma, cousin, friend, it doesn't matter. Kids don't care where those positive relationships come from and what the ages are. They just need to have positive relationships around them, people who accept them and love them hard, because life's difficult. Like Kate said, it is going to be hard. And if you can surround your kids with as many positive relationships as you can, they might come out of it a little less bruised. And don't forget to name those strengths.
Thank you. Jonathan.
Yeah, to summarize the discussion, so let me just raise a few points. The first thing is, if you are a young caregiver, then you are not alone. There are resources in the community, resources from schools, resources from religious organizations. Sometimes sometimes what we need is a bit of encouragement, encouraging those really needing resources to try to get the resources they need, because no one should walk alone on this journey. And second point is really about embracing yourself. Because different parents have different parenting styles, and I also and and we know what, we know what's best for the kids. And each kid has different personalities, so it's really about building the relationships so that they feel safe talking about their challenges with you, and then you can work best with the kids on how to address different issues. And what I also consider important is empowerment. And empowerment means nurturing the kids' capability to be their own advocates, and so that they can be their own advocates, but also the advocates of others. Because neurodiversity is not just neurodiversity, because neurodiversity as an issue is intersectional. And last but not least, but what I also wish to see to continue is for the caregiver groups that I know, the parents come from different social classes, but when they have resources, they share with each other unconditionally. So sharing is caring. This is what I wish to see continues.
That's lovely. Thank you. This is really powerful. Something from my perspective is that there's a lot of questions as well coming about. I don't want to tell my children. I shouldn't tell them. I don't know what to do. But people are asking the question. They're not almost saying I don't. They want the help, right, in the chat. And there's other questions where I'm going, how do I? And I think about this a lot because my kids are not interested, right? Like I talk to them about neurodiversity. They're like, shut up, Dad, you're boring. Like, we don't want to know about it. I don't want to know about autism or ADHD or whatever. But so I can't sit down and talk about sex or neurodiversity or whatever other topic like Dad is not good at talking at. But I can just be me, and I can share about my experiences and my strengths and my challenges and how other people didn't see them, and how some of them, they look similar to my children. And if they can see how I show up in a room and how I respect and treat others and how I stand up for myself when I need to, I'm respectful more than I'm not. And I always try to be, right? But they see that and they understand that. And that is what they learn from. So for people going, should I, shouldn't I, whatever, no. Like, if it helps, like, tell them if that helps you, if that's the way that you want to do it, if you want to get a book, if you want to watch a program, a cartoon, a film. There's so many options to provide information to people. And this could be managers, this could be partners, this could be family. There's a lot of tough people in our life, right? Start to have the conversation in a very normal, natural way, which is what we're doing today. And like, if I can tell you, go out into the world, spread the message in a human way. That doesn't need to be odd, doesn't need to be weird, just needs to be human, as you would have any other conversation. But unfortunately, we've not been having the conversation. And I think that's what's been beautiful today. Lots of people have shown up. If you all go and do the same thing and share your natural human experiences, I think that really makes the difference. So I'm not, unless anybody else has got anything final to finish us off with, I think this is the last couple of minutes just to thank everybody for taking the time. For me, this is like nightmare time. Like, bedtime is like, I've just gone and kicked the routine in the sky. So you got to wish me luck after that. So thank you. And if I can bring the Lexic team, if there's any other final things that we need to do to close this off, to thank everybody. But I just want to say thank you to Kate, Vicky, Jonathan, Kerry. It means a lot to come up and share your experiences, your lived experience, your life, your challenges, and more importantly, how incredible you are. Very much appreciate you all.
Thank you for being a very cool host, by the way. Much appreciated.
Many
Thank you.
hands make light
Yeah.
work.
Well done, Theo. Awesome job.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Well done, Theo, and a massive thank you to all of our fantastic panelists for the session. So Kate, Kerry, Vicky, Jonathan, and of course Theo. I think, you know, judging by the comments of our audience, that was engaging, thought-provoking, and inspiring came up a lot. So really massive thank you to you all for that great session. There was so many comments that came through. I'm sure as the panelists you didn't get a chance to look at them all, but there was some fantastic ones in there. People saying best session of the week so far, inspiring, someone saying that they needed to hear that, it validated them as a parent. Someone saying that it brought tears to their eyes, just hearing someone talk about it so openly and honestly, and someone asking if they could have you all on speed dial for the rest of the week. So,
yeah,
fantastic. Thank you very much. Just a couple of quick notes from me, and then I will bid you all good night. We do have one more day left of Neurodiversity Celebration Week, so please take a look at the website. We've got some great sessions tomorrow. As I said, they're all free. They're open to everyone. You can sign up for as many as you wish. So if there's anything on there that takes your fancy, please do sign up and come along and attend. Engage with us on social media. Please go on there, talk about this session that you've just been to. Let us know what you thought about it. Let us know some of your key takeaways. If there's anything that you're going to go and use practically after the session, there's loads of ways to engage with us across our social media channels. Continue the conversation with us on our forum. So there's been plenty of links sent out in the chat. You'll also get one in the post-event email, but you can continue that conversation there. And then, yeah, keep an eye out for the post-event email. It will be coming out soon. It'll have links to all of our fabulous panelists to get in touch with them, follow them on social media. It'll also have links to some of the resources that have been talked about during today's session. And it will also have a link to the post-event recording as well. So you can go back and rewatch this session as you wish. So really, it leaves me with nothing to do, but just once again, massive thank you to our fantastic panelists for this session. And a big thank you to you, our audience, for not only coming along for today's session, but for supporting us throughout the whole of NCW, amplifying the message and keeping the support going over social media and everywhere else. So with that, thank you again and have a great evening. Goodbye, everyone.